BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
All right, it's the one and only Liam Gallagher. Crouchy's asked me to say that this podcast contains strong language and adult themes. Remember, kids, swearing's not big and it's not clever. It's fun, though.
Crouchy P on the MIC. We're doing this just for free.
Do you give it the sniff test?
Peter, come do the quiz.
Feel a little bit like Dirty Deb.
You and your two silly little mates.
Silly little mates, just wrap it up.
Is it weird doing one of these whilst wearing clothes?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We're cruising at 2,400 feet.
Let's free the ketchup.
So much to get off my chest.
And you've always had magnificent teeth.
How bad have things got?
It's going downhill now, isn't it?
The nation will be back stronger. We're back from our break for another episode of That Peter Crouch podcast with me, Peter Crouch. I'm working from home again with Chris Stark, Tom Fordyce. How are we, boys?
Yeah, not bad.
Briss, Crouchy, all good?
We should talk about the 16th Chapel.
Yes, we should.
Now that we're back. I've been receiving, I would argue, thousands of messages telling me what an idiot I am for the mistake I made in the previous podcast. I still don't really know what Sistine means.
He's made it up. Bullshit.
Crouchy, you went away and created the 16th Chapel, an art gallery full of Roy Keane pics, and it's just taken over social media from what I can see.
It's definitely taken off, but you know what it is. You know, any sort of art fans or any people new to art, you know, you can't get out to the galleries, can you, at the moment? So what we've done is found a space in the market to get a virtual gallery out there. And I think our paintings would stand up in any gallery.
Could we take it further, boys? I mean, it seems to have gone down well. I'm just wondering, is there a chance we could take the 16th Chapel to like the Tate Modern, something like that?
I believe it should stay in Gosport until like a massive... What's the biggest gallery there is in the UK? Is it the Portrait Gallery?
You've got the National Portrait Gallery. I mean, the Tate Modern's got the Turbine Hall, hasn't it? Do you remember that? There was a time you'd have liked this, Crouchy. Do you remember the time they had a massive slide in the Turbine Hall?
Oh, I love a slide.
It was
How much was it?
Probably not enough for you. But yeah, I mean, look, Chris, would this meet your definition of art? It was a giant metal slide that went down the 4 or 5 stories of the Turbine Hall. It was done by a German artist called Carsten Holler. And I remember this because I went along and had a few beers and went down the slide and thought, I've done some art.
Yeah, well, we should get Carsten on the pod probably because he sounds like-minded with us. Like what he's done there is gone, art is shit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a slide in. I think the key is like, it's in this gallery in Gosport. I do like the idea of it being exhibited in just somewhere massive, just somewhere where it's like the Premier League of the art world. And that's not to do Gosport down. We should also say a massive thank you to Harry, who's a listener of this podcast, and his mum, Wendy, for, you know, making the exhibition happen.
Well, Wendy's not a name you hear very much these days. You don't get many new Wendys in the world, do you? Not many baby Wendys, are there?
I don't know a Wendy, actually, no.
It's a nice name, Wendy. It's one of those names that for some
reason... Well, it's a mum name, isn't it? It's so clearly Harry's mum.
I heard a stat recently that the name Iain is dying out. It's similar to the, to tigers in many ways. 30 years' time, we won't have a tiger. In 20, 30 years' time, we might not have an Iain.
Do we need some sort of, for the Ians, for the Allens, for the Judiths, for the Marjories, do we need some sort of campaign? I mean, there are campaigns to save tigers, to
save our Ians.
Save our Ians. Is there something we can get behind?
There's been some great Ians. Ian Botham.
Ian Wright.
And Tom?
Ian
Come
Dowie.
With an Ian. Ian Dowie. Who said that? Was that you, Crouchy? Great Ian. I do think there'll be listeners to this podcast that, you know, there will be a Wendy that is a young Wendy. There will be a baby Wendy. It would be almost interesting to find Britain's youngest Wendy.
But isn't that weird that like you're saying that Wendy, Ian, Graham, Nigel, you're basically saying, you know, that's a weird name. That is not a weird name. They're staples of our society. We've got so many famous people called the Nigels and Grahams and Ians, but no one's calling their babies them anymore. And I think it's sad. And, you know, it's like save the killer whale. Oh, you know, save the killer whale. But like, but, you know, Ian's dying in front of our eyes and we're not doing anything about it.
Do you know what? I think I know why he's so worried, Chris. There's not many Peters, not many baby Peters.
I wouldn't call my kid Peter.
No, not many do. Not many do. I've got an old school name. It's not, it's dying out. I mean, it's in the Bible. It's going to live forever. I feel like that's safe because it's in the Bible.
He said that before, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's in the Bible and it's safe. How many Jehoshaphat's do you know?
Depends on the story, doesn't it? How many Judases do you know?
Yeah, good point.
True that.
I was named after Peter Osgood. He had a lounge at Southampton when I was a player. And my dad had never met him. He was his hero all his life. He met my dad. I got man of the match and he presented me with the award.
Wow.
I got my dad on stage and he gave the champagne to my dad. I'm getting goosebumps now myself now. I felt so special to have sort of brought them together in a mad way that it was an amazing moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
What if someone names their baby not after you as a footballer, but perhaps after the podcast? So the podcast has done quite well for itself. And could we have a situation where one day a young baby goes and receives an award, their name's Peter, and then you present them with that podcast award and their dad just looks on going, wow, what a podcaster. It's not quite the same, is it?
It's not quite the same, no. But I think there's something in this. I feel like there's something in this. I think we need to save Ian. I feel like Wendy is something that I reckon there's a few Wendys out there. I think Ian's dying.
What do you think about Wendy? You say there's a few out there. There's not a child out there called Wendy, is there?
I believe there is.
And you think there's no children called Ian?
I think Ian you'd struggle more than Wendy.
You'd get a few Scottish Ians, like the IAIN. I think you get a few
I'm
of those.
not.
You're talking.
I'm not talking. No, I'm going standard IAN.
Standard. I'm going.
It's your classic Ian.
Just more classic Ian. Okay, so what we're trying to find now is Britain's youngest Wendy and Britain's youngest Ian. Okay, if you have a child named Ian or Wendy, we're sort of looking for evidence, maybe hope, that these names aren't kind of dying out.
And Ian, IAN, yeah?
Yeah. I don't think you're mucking around with other Ians, are you, Crouchy?
Too cool. It's too cool. If you've got an I and an Ian other than the start, then it's too cool. No good.
No good.
No. The only thing is, I'm just thinking then, like, you get a one-eyed Ian. He's actually got two eyes in his name, but only one eye.
Like if you're... No, as long as your name is IAN, then if your child is IAN and whether they have one or two eyes, that's fine.
That's absolutely fine.
Crouchy's done the robot again because it's 100 Premier League goals for Peter Crouch.
That Peter Crouch podcast from BBC 5 Live.
So lockdown is being relaxed and it's a lot easier for people to see their mates or their family. So we want to do it the same way. We're going to have a few people popping onto the pod to say hello and keep us company. Crouchy, who have you lined up this week?
We've got Louis Theroux here with us, I'm pleased to say.
Hello, here I am. Oh, there's a whole gallery I have to click right on my blue arrow to see. Yeah. Hi, Peter, how are you doing?
I'm good, Louis. How are you?
You know, all things considered, I'm doing not too bad. Not too bad. All the happier to be on air with the primo podcast outfit in town. The ones who always seem to be one place above me whenever I check the figures.
Louis, do you know what? The worst thing is, Louis, right? We're top, but my laptop is still upside down. Can't change my laptop from being upside down, and we're still number one somehow.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's nice to be with the competition, and thank you for having me on.
Is that a lockdown beard?
It definitely is. Anyway? Yeah, it definitely is. But then, and it's a lockdown haircut, which my wife gave me at the weekend. I've been doing the full lockdown, the full English lockdown, no half measures. I've been quite enjoying parts of it, and then other parts have been driving me a bit bonkers.
Where are you, Louis?
Very phallic
Where do you live?
Haven't you?
There's so many things about me that are phallic, except my penis.
I think what he's got there is some proper equipment. That's it. I'm not talking about your penis.
Yeah,
though,
that's top equipment. That is top equipment.
I'm so sorry that I apparently hijacked the show. So in a way, I've been on before, but without permission. The BBC, I've got a little arrangement whereby I can pop up in any other broadcast on TV or radio without permission, just unannounced, and do a promo for something I'm doing. So this time you were the lucky beneficiaries of that.
Yeah, it was quite unannounced. It was fine. Like we were all good with it, but we don't seem to get this love the other way around. No. Which is why I think we were just discussing this. We don't really want to view this as competition, but more that you could be a fantastic ally for the Peter Crouch podcast, and vice versa. We could have a mutually beneficial arrangement here. Yeah, like like a Formula One team where you got your top two drivers, and we just look after each other, and then at some point, we dick over the other one.
That's right. Yeah, like a little bit like Prost and Senna, something like
that. Yeah, that's a very good analogy. In fact, I was thinking more of it like little towns that are twinned. I could be like Yeovil, and then you're some town in Germany that no one's heard of.
Baden-Baden.
Yeovil's done very well to get Baden-Baden.
Louis, can I just say something? My wife's hanging here like a bad smell with a huge grin on her face because she's been dying to listen. Would you mind if I just pass? Would you mind if she just said hello?
It would be an honour. No,
Hi, Louis. I'm so sorry for this, but
Abby's gone to pieces.
I can't talk.
She's fallen apart.
Does this always happen, Louis?
No, this is more or less unprecedented. But then I mean, it's very nice, very gratifying. I'm glad I could provide a little bit of distraction during these strange times. And
we watched.
I actually can't talk. I actually can't talk.
We watched the LA one last night. We were on the dogs last night.
Oh, good. Yeah, although that's a sad one. That's a bit of a sad one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just wanted to say hi, and that I think literally your biggest fan on earth.
Oh, nice to hear that.
Louis, have you ever thought of investigating the Crouches there, or doing maybe one of the weird weekends?
Whether or not it would be a weird weekend or maybe just a gentle look at the world of the high society of footballing, like that, the world of I imagine it's quite glamorous, a little bit of money sloshing around, you earn a decent crust, as I understand it. Footballers do in general. And so I find that I like everyone, I'm fascinated by the high life. Perhaps we could go out on the town together.
Louis, that sounds fantastic.
Anytime, Louis.
Have you seen Abby's polka dot pajamas?
That's mainly what I had in mind, actually. Can I return?
Embarrass me in front of Louis Theroux. My God.
But can I return the compliment and say, like, obviously, Peter, I'm a fan of yours, and I actually, although I didn't grow up in a big sort of family of football supporters, my dad's American, so in some ways, I didn't grow up in a sort of footballing culture. And although I tended to watch the national games, but I didn't have a team that I supported. But later on, I moved to Shepherd's Bush, and this is a bit of a random one, so bear with me, okay? Because there's a story here. Are you ready? Buckle in.
Please say great. QPR if you live in Shepherd's Bush.
So QPR, 2001, I had a girlfriend who knew a guy called Mark Jones, who owned a record label, who was the biggest QPR fan going, and he even had a box. So I thought it'd be fun to go along and see a game. QPR were playing Fulham. And up front somewhere, there was this lanky new player. And someone said that's one of their new signings. They call him Rodney. Did you know? But his name's Peter Crouch. And they said he's quite tall and he looks a bit ungainly, but he's very useful. And sure enough, you scored. It was, I think it was 1-0, if memory serves. You might remember better than I do. But here's the random part of this. Is that one of the other people in the box, like who was a guest of Mark Jones, was a young artist, and he was a little bit sheepish. He wasn't terribly outgoing, and I said, "All right." He said, "You're all right." I said, "What do you do?" He said, "I'm an artist, sort of street artist." And he gave me a little booklet of some of his art, and I looked at it, and it looked quite good. And I kind of made awkward chit chat, and I said, "Oh, what's your name?" And he said, "Banksy."
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Fast forward like a year. And people get going like, have you heard about this bloke Banksy? No one knows who he is. And I said, Banksy? Yeah, I know who he is. We went to a QPR game together. And everyone's like, what? You've met Banksy? I said, yeah. He's like, yeah. And I just couldn't really remember anything about the encounter. But just the fact of having met Banksy at this random thing has stood me in good stead for the last 20 years.
That's
like,
incredible.
I'm one of the only people who's ever met Banksy. And we bonded over Peter Crouch.
You saw
insane.
Banksy and Rodney on the same day. It's incredible.
But you see, Louis, we I don't know if you know this, but we've sort of ventured into the art world now as a podcast. We've set up an art gallery. It's been launched, and it's pictures of Roy Keane meeting fans. But we created this gallery. It's all been displayed lovely. We did a gallery tour the other day, didn't you, Crouchy? You've set it all up.
Yeah,
called
set
it
it all
the
up.
16th Chapel. Long story. Anyway, so look, we made the 16th Chapel, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to get a bit of backing from the art world, you know. So now you talk about Banksy, it's phenomenal, because if we could get Banksy somehow involved with the 16th Chapel, or indeed sort of passing the pod, or it seems like a natural next progression for our venture into the art world, wouldn't you say, Crouchy?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, just some sort of endorsement from Banksy would be great. Obviously, you know who he is, and we don't. So if you could just sort that out, that would be great.
I'll get on he's probably listening now. Like, I imagine he follows your career with interest, and so Banksy. I feel a bit bad for even I'm not blowing his cover, but revealing something about his private life. But either way, if you're out there, Banksy, call in. Wouldn't you? You'd encourage him to call into the podcast, wouldn't you?
Louis, you much of a football fan?
I've got 3 boys, and my wife's comes from a family of football, sort of fans of football. And so, although I didn't grow up with a team that I supported, since I've had boys, I've gone to games. I go down to Loftus Road. Say one, not that often, but like once every few months, I'll go down. I've got one QPR supporter, one Tottenham supporter, and then the 5-year-old doesn't really know, his arse from his elbow. But maybe one day we'll support a
Chelsea
team.
fan then.
Yeah, I enjoy watching it. I watch the highlights. I don't claim to be knowledgeable. Like if we tried to talk football, I'd be out of my depth quite quickly. For my podcast, I interviewed Troy Deeney for it.
Really?
Yes,
Yeah.
great.
Of the 10 I've done, there's only been one footballer. It's the only time I've interviewed a footballer, and I actually had to say to him, look, Troy, I'm really sorry. I don't know an awful lot about football. I'm going to do the best I can, but you may be surprised at how ignorant I am, so bear with me. But we had a great chat in the end, mainly about growing up in the West Midlands and how he got into football. I don't think I embarrassed myself too much, but we'll see. He might have just been polite.
I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah.
There's someone else, Louis, as well, who we know quite well in this podcast, who might make quite a nice topic for one of your old school weird weekends. The first thing you need to know about this man, at one point in his life, he was killing 140,000 chickens a day.
Yeah, well, I'd also say, he'd had a longer Premier League career than I have. Basically, he's a referee. And we interviewed him on this, and his name's Mike Dean. But I think it's a story that would sit well on what you
This
did.
is a real human being, is it?
Yes, referee Mike Dean.
Yeah, it was a huge amount. It's chicken genocide.
Wow.
Although that's a bit of an overdramatic. Well, actually, maybe not. I don't know. But it's just mad that you've got a referee that everyone knows, and that's what he used to get up to. But is this what happens, Louis? Whenever you're out, you meet people and they suggest people that you should go and interview.
It's not as bad as you might think. In fact, you know what? Ideas are welcome. I live. Ideas are my lifeblood, really. So that's how I would never want people to feel inhibited from coming up and saying make a program about a guy who killed 140,000 chickens.
My wife's still hanging around, by the way. She's off camera, but she's
I'm
apologised.
glad to hear that, Abby. Stay tuned. It's going to get interesting any minute now.
Well, I wanted to know what's your favourite red wine, because I always notice that you have a glass of red.
I'm not that knowledgeable about red wine, but I would normally, if I was at a loss, I'd pick out probably a nice full-bodied South American red, like a Malbec, something like that, or maybe a Chilean.
That's so weird, because that's what I like.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Here we go.
Do you like long walks on the beach as well?
I love them, Louis.
I know you just said you've got young kids, married. Obviously, a lot of your like documentaries are in America, and you must go for a long time. Like, how does that work?
That's
like,
a good question. Yeah, the work-life balance. But this is very pre-COVID. This is a very 2019 conversation. I mean, of course. I haven't left the house in 3 months, and
does it throw up new ideas then? Because when you say spent time with the swingers, well, the idea of swinging in a COVID time is, it's probably underground more than it was when you were investigating it, right?
Do you know I've been in touch with the swingers? That was a Weird Weekends episode from 1999. I was kind of curious what they were doing during the pandemic. And you'll be happy to know, although they've been locked down, they're opening back up this weekend. They're having their first
swinging's back on.
COVID swinging party. Yeah.
Why has this not been announced by? I'm not seeing this on either government press conferences. We're like garden centres, yes, but nothing about the swingers.
I know. Well, Boris, if you read between the lines, you can have one family who you're in a swing bubble with.
I can go over to Peter Crouch's house, but only if I have sex with him. I think it was something like that.
That's I didn't read that, but that may well be the case. Some of the rules are changing, but swinging is back, and a brothel that I filmed in 2003 is opening up this weekend in Nevada.
Yeah, anyway. I remember that one.
You would think there'd be a bit of a gap between, we're going to wait a bit on primary schools, but the swinging is going back full force.
Yeah, my little girl, I've got 4 kids, and I've only got 1 back at school, but swinging's fine.
Swinging's fine. I've got 3 kids all at home. We've got one the 5-year-old starting on Monday at primary school, but only 2 days a week. Like, why don't they even say swing? You can only swing 2 days a week. You can swing every day of the week. It's madness.
When you're in the mood for swinging, that's the thing, isn't it? It doesn't. I mean, the ones that you met, are they swingers for life? By the way, do you have a swinging career where you sort of retire? Like Crouchy retired at 38 because his speed had gone. So when your speed goes in swinging, do you have to hang up your boots?
I don't think you do. I think with swinging, unlike football, there are pills you can take. What's the footballing analogy for this? Which is that in swinging, the women go for free, but men have to pay. And women can arrive as singles, but men have to bring a partner, a female partner.
It's like because otherwise, rules, isn't
it? Yeah. Otherwise, it's just a sausage fest.
You a line I didn't expect to hear tonight. I met someone on a night out. I don't know if you can confirm or deny this. A man called Gagan. Now he said not many people know this, but your karaoke song is "Yes, Sir, I Can Boogie."
Well, that is one of them. I've got 2 main ones. "Yes, Sir, I Can Boogie" is one, and the other one is "Teenage Dirtbag" by Wheatus.
Awesome.
Yeah, and we were doing a story, and it was Gagan's birthday, and we went out for a drink, and then one drink led to another, and then literally at 2 a.m, we were at the karaoke, still going, screaming. I was up there doing my full Teenage Dirtbag, and we had to film the next morning.
Is this in America?
This was in San Jose, California. Yeah.
We should. I've just had an idea, Louis. I'm going to throw it out there. I'm hoping that you've had a nice glass of red or something, and we'll say yes. Would you potentially consider performing Teenage Dirtbag as part of Crouch Fest?
Oh my God! It would. You'd need something bigger than the O2 for that.
Well, we could work on that.
It'd need to be global, I think. No, I think to inflict that much pleasure on people would be. I don't even know. Is that a real question? I'd like to sing it. Whether in front of the O2, that would be quite a lot to ask, wouldn't it? Of them and me.
It's a maybe.
It's a definite maybe.
We'll say that as a maybe. Yeah.
Was it well known that you had Rodney? Was Rodney a nickname that you had, or was that just?
Yeah. There was a song at QPR that was like along the Only Fools and Horses theme tune.
Sing it to us.
No income tax, no VAT, 60 grand transfer free, black or white, rich or poor. Peter Crouch is gonna score. God bless Peter Crouch. Long live Peter Crouch. Say magnifique. Peter Crouch.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's a good song. It was a good song. Yeah, we need to. It was. They were good times because I grew up in Ealing, West London, so it was my local team, QPR. So to play for them, I had all my mates there in the crowd. It was great.
Happy days. And Banksy was there.
Yeah,
Banksy
that's
was
a
there.
one, isn't it?
Was
it definitely Banksy? That's my only fear, because there must be a lot of people down the years who've gone up to someone gone, probably shouldn't say this, but I am Banksy.
It was 20 years ago. No one knew who Banksy was. It wasn't
Gordon,
laying
was
a
it?
trail.
It was not Gordon Banks.
You should have got him to scribble out a little picture on a napkin or something.
There's so many I should have got a selfie with him, and then I could have blackmailed him 10 years later. You're right.
It's good having you on, Louis.
Lovely stuff. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, Louis. Nice seeing you.
No
Thanks,
worries.
Louis. Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Keep up the good work.
Have fun with the pod.
Will do. Take it easy. See you later.
That Peter Crouch podcast from BBC 5 Live.
All right, this is Liam Gallagher, and I've got a question for you. Who's the most rock and roll sportsman?
Straight in.
Well,
yeah.
I love that.
The problem with this, Crouch, is we can't disappoint Liam Gallagher, can we? What about a Zlatan? Like, do you know what I mean? It's got a sort of Cantona vibe. Like, well, he obviously won't go for him, but
Cantona's a great
it's someone
shout,
with a
but-
bit of presence, like Zlatan comes in with it. He's a star, isn't he? Like, even to a certain extent, Pogba. Just a bit of swagger about him. Like
Zlatan, I get it. Yeah, I mean, he's you can imagine him fronting a band up, can't you? Like giving it massive, But he's just, I feel like he's just a bit too trim.
He's not rock and roll. I think he'd like to think he's rock and roll, but I don't think he could live it. I think he'd like to pose it. I'm not sure he could live it. Who would you be most scared to have a night out with? There's fun rock and roll characters, and then there's the scary ones. Like I'm sure we've all met people like this through mates of mates.
Sean Derry's a good pal of mine, right? I know we always go back to Sean Derry, right? But he's one of my pals. But one of the best things he ever told me was when he was at the Midlands Awards. He'd had a bit too much to drink, and he was on his back spinning like a turtle. And Gerard Houllier just walked past him and said, "You're a disgrace to your profession." And and Deza just said, "Fuck off, Gerard." Carried on spinning.
I mean,
you know what? He regretted that, and he did. He was mortified in the morning.
Of all the different scenarios, Chris, that we've heard from Crouchy in the 4 series, this podcast, that I'd like to see reenacted at some point, that might be now the number one. Gerard Houllier walking in, "You are a disgrace to your profession."
How French is that, by the way? It's just so European. Such a European insult.
You know what? We all unwind in different ways, don't we? We all need to let off steam in different ways, and that was Sean's release, and I'm sure Gerard has other forms.
Would that have been a better riposte then, rather than telling him to fuck off, just to shout as he was rotating, just shout, "Gerard, we've all got our own ways of letting off steam."
The way I define a rock star, right, is slightly flawed, incredible at what they do, showman, possibly a bit of a playboy, charismatic. Everyone wants to be them.
So there's only a few sports where that last category comes into play, isn't there? Really,
that's what I'm talking about. Like as a sportsman, it's hard to sort of function at that level and be.
Dennis Rodman.
Rodman's up there. Got to be.
Shall we settle on an answer for Liam here?
I've got it. The biggest rock and roll sportsman of all time. I just watched a documentary about him yesterday. I'm banging to like sport documentaries at the minute. Diego Maradona at Napoli. I don't know if you've watched that. I mean,
no, I've not seen this.
The mafia from Naples, obviously the Camorra, had strong links to Diego Maradona. And, what went obviously he was an addict, which was not ideal, but he was also the best football player on the planet at that time. I mean, what a player. When you see the ability that he had and the way he was going past people, Napoli were down the bottom. I mean, they were close to relegation a few times. He signed and they went from, fighting near the bottom of Serie A to finishing 8th, I think, in his first season, and then winning the league double 2 out of 3 years. Won the UEFA Cup.
Never won it.
I always think with a hero story like that, if you want to use that phrase, might be the wrong phrase to use, but if you're going to use that phrase, like an unbelievable talent comes into the club, right? And I saw this with the Michael Jordan one, that yes, all the spotlight is on an incredible player, but there's always one that is just underneath them who is like an amazing player, but will never get the recognition for doing a service to the team. Like I totally buy this idea that he was an incredible player. I bet you there's a player here that gets overlooked, and I feel it happens in every scenario. And with the Bulls, it was, and this is how bad it is, I've forgotten his name.
Scottie Pippen.
Watching it. Pippen, yeah. In that he was rated, but he probably didn't get the credit that he deserved for what he was doing for the team.
That's true, but if you look back at Maradona's career, for instance, like he won the World Cup in '86, scored one of the best goals that possibly we've ever seen in the World Cup. Even in '90, he actually scored the winning penalty, and I think this changed his sort of time in Napoli for the worse when he scored the winning penalty and knocked Italy out of the World Cup in Naples. Yeah. I mean, it's an incredible story. And then obviously there's the story of, like, you go right that, like, talk about rock and roll, people in rock and roll. There's often a downward spiral, and that was probably, just after that was when he got banned for substance abuse. He got banned in Italy, got banned at the World Cup, didn't he? And then we see it now, and it's, I don't know, it's a little bit sad, isn't it, to think that one of the best players who's ever kicked a ball, if not the best, he's up there with Messi without a doubt.
They're kicking him everywhere, Crouchy, aren't they? They're just
they're scything him down.
You watch the tackling in Serie A in the late 80s, and it is brutal, Chris. I mean, people just trying to chop him down at his knees, and he never falls. He's like a little amazing rubber ball. He just bounces and stays upright.
Bounces up, yeah. I mean, a genius in his field, and what he did. I mean, he dragged Napoli to the league title twice. Won the UEFA Cup with them. Won the World Cup. Lived the rock and roll lifestyle. He's the man.
Keep your questions coming into Crouchy, by the way. It's quite good to keep him under pressure, don't you think, Tom?
Oh, big time.
Dead simple email address. What is it, Crouchy?
peter.crouch@bbc.co.uk.
We've had a message from Tom, boys. I really like this one. He says, what would Crouchy's starting 11 be if he had to pick a team from the current Premier League managers? That's tough.
A huge question. Like,
you've got most positions covered, though. You've got a goalkeeper in there.
Mourinho was a keeper, wasn't he?
Nuno Espirito Santo was a goalkeeper.
Is this current Premier League managers in their current physical health?
The way I'm looking at it is like how they are now. Hodgson just doesn't get in there now.
What? Hodgson wasn't getting in it anyway.
If you put Hodgson up against Mikel Arteta, for instance, who's a young manager, obviously it looks ridiculous. But
this is the youngest picture I can find of Roy Hodgson so far, and he still looks old.
He looks like 56, 55.
So what is the formation? Are we going 4-4-2 then?
What if I go 3 at the back? I'm going to go Dyche, Bruce, Pearson.
Yeah,
wow.
Nice.
Right?
Not massively mobile.
No, they're going to be very compact, aren't they?
Espirito Santo in goal. I'm going for Potter and Wilder as fullbacks. And then I'm packing the midfield out with Guardiola, Lampard, Arteta.
Ancelotti
in there. Yeah, Ancelotti's getting in there because I'm going to play Frank slightly ahead of them all in a free role sort of, to join up with Solskjaer.
What a team this is.
I feel like I've made a team out of that there.
I mean, that was what you were being asked to do.
Yeah, but I feel like that's the best team I could make. And I think anyone who argues with that, I don't know too much about Daniel Farke's career. We might have to go into that, but
it was a bit lower league, I think.
I'm happy with that team.
Who's captain of your team?
I like a centre-half to be skipper. It's Steve Bruce for me, I think. He's going to captain my team. I'd like, Guardiola, I get it, but I'm going old school with this team, and Steve Bruce is my skip.
Is this not something the Premier League should be looking at? Like, there was all the talk about the 39th game, wasn't there, about taking a game from the Premier League overseas. What we need the Premier League to call out Serie A and the Bundesliga and say, listen, our managers take on your managers. This is how we sort it out.
Everyone would watch that, wouldn't they?
No forward. You tell me Aubameyang, Aguero, right? Harry Kane. They don't want to face Dyche, Bruce, Pearson. I'm telling you now, they don't want to face that. Even now.
You got 3 Buffaloes, bang, in a row. Like who are you pulling onto in that scenario, Coach? Who are you pulling onto at a corner?
No, but you pull onto one and you get it, and you pull onto the other, bang, you get that. You're not, you just drop deep. And then the worst thing is, you dropping deep there. We've got Ancelotti, Arteta, and Guardiola scurrying around you. You've got no chance.
Humiliating.
It's like 300. I don't know if you've seen that film, where they just a small passage that the whole, I can't remember if it's like all of Greece.
It's the Spartans, isn't it? So
yeah, and the Spartans just stand there holding firm. That's what that is.
Steve Bruce is Gerard Butler.
That's the first time he's ever been described as Gerard Butler.
Yeah, imagine Steve Bruce stood there. This is Sparta.
This is the Toon.
He's gone Scottish.
We are the Toon.
Lads, I've really enjoyed the podcast today. Back stronger and all that. What a first proper get back at it episode. Back
stronger for me. I mean, Liam Gallagher, Louis Theroux, they're like my two favourite people at the minute. I mean, Liam's always been up there, but Louis at the minute, like over lockdown, I've watched absolutely everything that he's done.
Well, you got your two silly mates as well, Crouchy.
Yeah, two silly mates as well. I've loved every minute of it.
I mean, your wife has left you for one of the guests on your own podcast, but
I got that vibe as well.
Do you know what? I think she would, yeah. She'd probably leave me for Liam as well, actually. But, I mean, it's been a long lockdown. I'm not against it.
Right then, what do we do? Are we nearly at the end?
Oh, we got so much content there. This is usually the part where Tom jumps in and tries to sell a podcast or something, but we'll leave that now, shall we?
What about the Football Daily boys?
No, I don't think. No. Let's
Farming Today. What about the Farming Boys?
Well, Louis Theroux hijacked our podcast last time with an advert. We've given him a whole slot on this one now. He's promoted his.
Well, that's
he's
fair.
Promoted it, so you can piss off with your rugby shit.
How are we going to finish then?
Do you know what we should do instead of the promotion? We've got a track. We're trying to change the music, aren't we? Yeah, we've got a track from Joel. I think he can play us out tonight.
Beautiful. Let's hear it.
Yeah, that's a nice idea.
Have you ever felt lonely? Have you ever felt sad? Well, I've got the solution for that problem you had. So just take a moment.
This is nice.
Sit back and have no fear. It's three lads chatting football with a pint of beer. One used to be professional, the big man up top. But it wasn't all just headers. Oh no, he did a lot. Defenders left scared, even though he weren't that fast. So go listen to that Peter Crouch podcast.
Oh yeah.
Won't write sports for the news. To me, the best job you could have. So why you here chatting rubbish? Is it really all that bad? One works as a DJ on national radio. So come on, let's get on with the show. Drifting off to that Peter Crouch podcast.
Go on, Joel.
Joel,
that's
get
top
in there.
stuff,
Oh my God.
How good was that?
I thought that was beautiful. Really did. I'm quite emotional about it.
I am,
Nice one, Joel. Nice one, everyone. Good night. Back stronger.
Chris wants to piss off.
Back stronger, that'll do.
See you later. That'll do, yeah.
No, I love
well done,
that,
Joel.
though. Joel, but no,
that was really nice.
That was awesome.
That was really good.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.